Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Dr. Rock here. That is spelled R-A-K, pronounced R-O-C-K. I am a lifestyle medicine physician at Rock Your Life. This is my weekly live stream. I am joined today by Chloe. Chloe, you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, yes, I am a plant-based chef and I have a uh, master's degree in nonprofit management and I just got my
That's right.
certificate through the ACLM. So I'm a diplomat with the ACLM, which I'm really excited about and really passionate about all things lifestyle.
That's right. That's right. And Chloe and I met a couple years ago at the Plantrition Conference, which is the
Yeah.
annual plant-based conference put on by the Plantrition organization, which is like a clinician who uses plants. So a plantrician, which is really cool because plants are so powerful, which is what we are going to talk about today. We are going to talk about all things plants. You love to cook plants.
I
I'm
do.
curious, yeah, how did you become a just before we get into like transitioning to plant-based eating and how to level up your health and your life with plants, how did you get into plant-based cooking and become a chef?
Yeah, so it all started when I was a kid. I was always cooking with my mom. I wanted to be a pastry chef growing up in middle school. And
Mm.
then during a career fair, they had us research the careers we wanted, and I learned that pastry chefs have to wake up in the middle of the night, and it's a really difficult
That's
position. So I abandoned that, but that passion was always there. So I'm actually really glad that I didn't pursue traditional culinary school at that time because it would have been a lot harder to go plant based. So then I fast forward to 2013. I met my now husband, and he was watching all these food documentaries and he started showing them to me. But he was like, well, what are we supposed to do? Everything is bad that we eat. And I was like, I like to cook. So I just hopped
Mm,
back in the kitchen and really got into researching and learning. And that eventually led me to the book Eat to Live by Dr. Furman.
mhm,
And I read that in 2 days. And as soon as I finished, I was like, well, there's no going back after this. So
mm.
it's been about a 9.5, almost 10-year journey.
I hear that. Wow. Yeah, it's almost like when you learn these things, I had a similar like I read How Not to Die
Mm.
in 2015 when it came out, yeah, end of 2015, and that was around the time I was also sort of transitioning and but then when I was learning these things, I was like, you can't unsee them. Like now when I eat, you know, back then and even now, like certain foods, I like first thing that comes into my mind is like, this is inflammatory. I'm gonna I'm causing all these like micro damage in my blood vessels. But no, I hear that. Okay, so you read Eat to Live, and then was that and you had some culinary chops. So I hear that too. Like one of the things that really benefited you early on and your husband was, wow, we're going to eat this way and I'm going to get cooking. I'm going to figure out how to make this food not just like passable, but delicious. Is that right?
Absolutely. And back to your point about like when you're learning about all this stuff, how exciting it can be and empowering it is. I think one of the reasons that I was so deep in this lifestyle in the beginning was because I was just constantly learning. I was reading, I was listening to
Mm,
podcasts, I was
mm,
diving in anywhere I could, and that was really motivating to me. It kept reinforcing why I wanted to live this way. So
mm.
I think it's not the case for everybody, but research and learning was a really big tool for
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
yeah. I
And
I I echo that completely.
yeah,
I
yeah.
especially if you don't know, like, many people doing this, like, to have online community or, like, a podcast where you're like, "I'm not in this alone. There are other people, there are all sorts of resources here out there to support me."
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think your other question was about, um, just kinda getting in the kitchen and making this stuff
Oh,
really
yeah.
delicious and exciting. That's one of my big passions. I love,
Mm,
making food that feels indulgent and exciting, and
mm,
if I felt deprived in any way, I wouldn't
mm,
be able to stick with this lifestyle. So
mm.
there's ways of making this food and experience really enjoyable and joyful and um, just
Yeah.
fulfilling, nutrient dense. Like there's
Yeah.
so many things that come on top of that, but the food for me has to be exciting and delicious as well.
Oh, okay. That's a big one. That's a big one for me too. Not and I would say not always, like, there's
Mhm.
certain, like but actually, like, even the mundane, I enjoy. I think there has to be some level of, like, not just, "This is passable," but, like, it does it and your tastes change, and we can certainly talk about that, but before you get into specifics of, like, strategies, can we back up? Like, I feel like that word plant-based is used all the time, right? Like, soaps are plant-based and makeup and so and I go to the store and, unknowingly, there's a lot of packaged food now that has that stamp plant-based, these
Yeah.
sandwich cookies are plant-based. So how should someone be navigating? I tell people all the time it benefits for eating plant-based, but there's some specifics there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think when shopping, uh, try to shop the perimeter of the store. So, the produce aisle is where I spend most of my time. And then I go into like the natural aisle or, wherever the oats and the flours and the
Mm,
spices are and stuff like
mm,
that. But I'm not, passing the chips and the cookies and all that stuff too often. So most of my time is spent looking at the whole foods. So I think focusing on that is really um, beneficial, and knowing how to read ingredient lists and looking not at the front of the package where all the marketing is, but at the back
yeah,
where the information is, and
right.
just keeping an eye out for words that you don't recognize and the sodium content and
Mm,
added things that we don't want, and lower saturated fat on the package, all of that stuff. So I think shopping in the produce and reading ingredients is where it's at.
that's right. Yeah, I think that people often say that shop in the perimeter. Um, but the perimeter is also where, like, cheese and eggs and dairy. I mean, there are more whole foods and certainly the produce in the perimeter, but to your point, actually, the middle of the store has, like, canned beans and dried
Mhm.
beans and, buckwheat flour, and certainly things that are part of a healthy pantry. Um, yeah, I like what you said. You read the back of the ideally, the produce doesn't really come in, or if it comes in packages, it's because they're trying to market, like, the kiwis as being something cute but for the most part, produce shouldn't really need a package. It has its own nature's package, and it doesn't really need a label either. So if you are buying something with a label, I like what you said. Look out for certain things. Um, and I think you're emphasizing the whole food part of plant-based, right? It's not just, or it's not really the Impossible Beyond, Morningstar. I used to eat when I was in college, Chloe. I used to be a vegetarian. I was a vegetarian for several years. I did it for kind of spiritual reasons, and I actually really loved meat. And part of it was like the sacrifice of it. And my diet consisted, predominantly of like faux meat and cheese, right? And so it was one of the unhealthiest like eating probably. Um, so I always tell people, you can be a vegetarian, you can be a vegan, you can be anything really and unhealthy, and you can be an omnivore or some sort of mix of plant and animal product and be very healthy. The devil's in the details, right? Like how much whole unprocessed plant food are you incorporating?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think, those products have a place here and there. When we're in a pinch and we're going to a friend's barbecue, once in a great while, we grab one of the
Yeah,
burgers or, things like that. But it's for me, it's learning how to make your favorite recipes at home and eating at home as much as possible so that, when you do have something out, it's not the majority of your diet.
that's
So,
right. That's right.
for
It's
me,
like
it was yeah, it was really important to find my old favorites, whether it was what I grew up eating or just
mm.
things that I like to eat, and substitute them and shift them, keep the flavor, but make it in a healthier way.
Chloe, what are some oh, my dog. So sorry. Forgot to put him in the garage. What are some common misconceptions that, you encounter when people are starting a plant-based diet?
I think, we touched on one of them that people are going to feel deprived and like they're not eating, tasty food. And that is easy to challenge and show people that this food is really delicious. I think another one is it can be really challenging to eat out or navigate social situations, which that can be challenging, but it's also about finding community and leaning on people who have, you know, been doing this for a while and asking
Mm,
for help when you need it and getting that support system. um, I think it's also a myth that people think that this way of eating is really expensive, and it can be. It
mm,
also doesn't have to be.
mm,
Beans, potatoes, oats are some of the cheapest foods out there. Um, so I think it's all about what each individual is looking for and navigating that, and overcoming those challenges for each person.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, those are great points. Absolutely. And, what about somebody who doesn't really like, you had that huge asset that you already knew how to cook and loved cooking. What about somebody who's not really inclined to do a lot of cooking? Like, that's not
Yeah,
their interest.
it's a good question. I think for people who don't either know how to cook or don't enjoy cooking, those are kind of two separate things. So somebody who doesn't know how but wants to learn how, you can YouTube, basic knife skills and just knowing how to kind of set up your kitchen and preparing a recipe ahead of time. So one of the things I would recommend is read the recipe all the way through. So you
Mm,
know exactly what is coming up in the recipe. That helps you not skip steps. It helps you be more organized and prepare ingredients ahead of time so that while you're cooking, it's a smooth process and you're not like, oh, I have to like chop this, but I'm supposed to be putting it in at this stage of the recipe and then it kind of spirals. So look at the
mm,
recipe ahead of time. And you can take classes or look online or cook with a friend. Maybe you have a
mm,
friend or a family member who loves to cook and you can hop in with them. My husband's not uh, very big in the kitchen, but last night he was there and I was just gently guiding him through and he does great. So I think it's about finding the resources and knowledge if you don't know how to cook but you want to,
mm,
or if you want to learn how to cook a different way, because this way of eating requires different techniques
mm,
in terms of preparation, or substitutions. So
mm,
again, just finding the resources that you're looking for, and then if you are not passionate about cooking, you hate cooking, and it just is not something that you enjoy, um, I would challenge that a little bit. I would say maybe put on some of your favorite music, again,
mm,
get some friends together
mm,
and see if maybe you do like to cook in a different setting. But if again, if it's something that you just really, really don't enjoy, um, find really simple things. There are recipes that are really minimal. I do think that there are some meal delivery services you can lean on,
Sure,
or
sure,
leaf side is you just add
sure,
hot water. um,
sure.
there are resources now coming out which are great, um, and even in terms of like going to a plant-based restaurant or something like that, their their goal is to get you back to the restaurant. Their goal, and
Mm,
every restaurant, their
mm,
goal is not making the healthiest possible
mm.
food. So having at least a few recipes in your repertoire that you can lean on when you want healthy food at home, because nobody's going to make healthier food than you at home when you know what you're doing. So I think
Yeah.
just, you can do it really gradually. So adding one recipe a week that's new. And then if you like it, keep it in a binder so that you can go back to it. If you
Mm.
don't like it, try something new next week. But it doesn't have to be this complete overhaul of your life if this is not your passion.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and actually, so few things you said there, which I think are really is, if cooking is not your passion and you're something you're not good at, first kind of ask yourself, is it something you want to get better at?
Right.
And you really challenge people to like think about that because if they're inherently saying no, why are you saying no? Like, have you experienced what has your experience been with cooking? And I like to cook. I tell you, like for me, it's one of those experiences where I kind of get out of my head, right? You get in this sort of flow state. And I think it was only recently in the last couple of years I recognized why I like to cook because I'm just so like into that activity. The other thing you said, which I love, is like elevate the experience. Put on some music, right? Make it fun. Have some people over, or if you have if you have your partner, your kids, or anyone, really like make it a. And it's always more enjoyable when you're cooking for someone else, right? Like
Yeah.
you care more about how it comes out, and or you generally, I think. So those are all great tips. And I did mention like cooking with your kids, but do you have any specific tips like for and I this is something I struggle with. Like I will make a new recipe. Um it doesn't matter what it is. It really doesn't matter what it is. It's new, it's different, and they're like, the fork is like picking it up and dropping it. Like, what is this? Um yeah, how do you I'm sure you encounter a lot of times people you work with, like, uh, what do you counsel them on when they're working with their kids?
Yeah. Well, first, how old are your kids again?
So my oldest is 12 and then 10 and oh, almost 10, he'll be 10 in a couple months, and then 8.
Okay. So not super young. Do they get to get in the kitchen with you and make those new recipes?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, we have tried that. I hear what you're saying though,
Mhm.
like, if they're involved, they're more likely to, um yeah, so I think to varying degrees, they like cooking, or they're
Mhm.
interested in it. Baking, I think, resonates more with them. So we've been doing like whole food plant-based baking, and so it's baking I feel good about. And then we make cookies, and I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, you can have two or three. It's oats and nut butter, and like have as
Yeah,
many as you want. Like, but
totally.
yeah, so that's a good tip, like, get them involved. What if your kid is like, "Ah, I don't even wanna eat this, much less cook it with you." No.
I think modeling is such a powerful thing. So showing them how excited you are and talking about,
Mm,
why what makes you excited about the food, and
mm,
personally why you feel connected with either that recipe or the ingredients, and then talking about, you know, from a mindfulness standpoint, just all of the inputs that go into the food, from the rain
Mhm,
and the earth and the animals and, all
mhm,
the way to the truck drivers who are transporting the food to the stores and the farmers and, you know, the cashier at the grocery store and just, really framing it as a such a beautiful experience to bring all of those ingredients in front of us. I think is just a good way to help understand how our food makes it to our plate, which for me, I feel more connected to the
mm,
food that way. So hopefully the
mm,
your kids do as well.
yeah,
But yeah, never forcing kids to eat
mm,
something that they don't like because I think introducing foods multiple times is really helpful. The more kids are um, introduced to foods, the more likely they are to eat it. But if we're forcing kids to eat food that they don't like and then they have a bad experience with it, then we have some
mhm,
unhealthy thought processes around
mm,
food and it can, become really difficult to unlearn those things. So just creating fun experiences and the way that you plate things, if you can make it into an animal or a shape. I mean,
yes,
your older
yes,
kids are
yes.
probably not
Oh,
gonna
they
be
probably
as
still like
enticed by that, but, even, like, with pancakes and you make, like, a little bunny, they're gonna eat the pancakes, but,
that.
um, yeah, I think
Put
just
enough syrup on it.
making it an experience and modeling that, enjoyment as well.
Yeah, modeling, that rings true for me, even from a young age, my middle son likes salad greens because he saw us
Mhm.
eating salad all the time, and you said something else, which is introducing, but then the first time, it's just true for adults too, like, if you've never eaten something before, you won't necessarily have a taste for it, unless it's,
Mhm.
like, something unnatural that's been designed to be highly palatable, but right? But, like, for new foods, one thing I like to do to introduce all of us to new foods is go as a whole family to farmer's market
Yeah.
and go to stand and talk to the farmers and try the different, there's so many varieties of apples that I didn't know existed. There's so many varieties of citrus that I didn't know existed. So
Mhm.
that's been now, and they don't always go with me, but if I go on Saturday, they look forward to me coming back. And I get really excited about produce. That's what you said. I try to bring up the energy in the house around produce, so I think that helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, we kinda didn't we glossed over a little bit about the why of plant-based eating, but I think that segues nicely into, something that you and I are gonna be, um, collaborating on and
Mhm.
starting next month, and it's a series, a cook-along series, calling it the Prevention Plate, and we are going to be s- picking a different condition or disease or area of focus around lifestyle. And the first one we're doing is blood pressure, high blood pressure,
Mhm.
hypertension. Uh, and Chloe, we picked February 25th. February 25th is a Sunday. So it's going to be a Sunday afternoon, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, and there will be a sign up link in the description for this. Maybe not right away, but later today. You want to share a little bit about what people can expect? Oh, and it's
Mhm.
if you're a member of Rock Your Life, it's included, and but we want to invite everyone who's interested in this, and it will be $29 for the 90-minute cook along session. And if for some reason you would like to attend and financially you can't make that work, then please reach out. There'll be an email address
Mm.
with the description to reach out to us when you go to the booking page. But yeah, what are you thinking? We're going to be cooking up during the prevention plate, and
Yeah. So, I think what's really amazing about this series is, um, Dr. Rock and I are looking at the scientific literature. We're seeing specifically what ingredients are really powerful at addressing high blood pressure, for example, and incorporating those ingredients into really delicious recipes. So we're going to be cooking two of those recipes, but you're going to get several other ones that you get to experiment with and play around in your kitchen. And we're also just going to be talking the entire time about different strategies of lifestyle medicine for high blood pressure. So I think it's really amazing that we are connecting a something that we can prevent and treat with lifestyle with actual food, and making it really delicious. So, there are specific ingredients like hibiscus and garlic, and I won't get into all the others because there's a
Yeah,
lot.
that's right.
But really focusing those recipes around those ingredients and making it really delicious so that, you know, our plate becomes our prevention plate.
Yeah. In fact, originally, before we decided to sort of work on specific diseases, we were thinking of calling it the flavor series because really that's what you thrive on is bringing flavor to this type of cuisine and food. And you said it at the beginning, you said when the food is delicious, like you don't feel deprived.
Yeah.
And if you feel deprived, it's just not a life worth living.
No, I want to live
Right.
a joyful life, and that includes the food.
Yeah,
And that includes my health.
yeah.
And I think, there's this common misconception that you can't have both.
You can't have both.
But you can. You
Yeah.
absolutely can. So, um,
It takes a little bit of time for your taste to change. My wife will remind me of this. She'll say, sometimes when I don't know, I'm just like, "Why doesn't everyone eat this way?" And she'll be like, "Don't you remember the way you ate and, like, when you started eating this way, like, it was just sort of like, but then after it didn't take long. After a few
yeah.
weeks, your gut microbiome changes and then your taste buds change. So, like, you
Mhm.
kinda have to go in with the recognition, like, "Okay, I'm gonna miss some things initially, and then surprisingly, really surprisingly, I'm not gonna want those things anymore." And that how long that takes depends, but if you go in with that attitude, you're gonna be pleasantly surprised, when you just, kinda crave the green smoothie. Like,
I know. I never thought the day
I
would
never
come
thought
where
that
I
day
would
would
crave
come.
kale.
I know. I'm like, I really will come back from a trip, I'm like, "I really need a big salad." I've said that, and then I've been
Yeah.
like, "Who am I?
Mhm.
What?" Um, so good. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. We're also gonna, I mean, hypertension is specifically, but even in general, like, there's a power to breath work and meditation, and so we're gonna be incorporating some of that I'll be guiding people through during the session. And it'll be a lot of fun, there's gonna be
Yeah.
flavor and fun um, and you're gonna learn how to take good care of yourself and your health. And blood pressure is one of those things. It's the number one risk factor for heart disease, the number one risk factor. And I feel like my parents' generation, um, they're very acutely aware. And they're always like when I was a kid, I would go to the drugstore and like check their blood pressure. And now I don't know. I don't feel
Yeah.
like younger generations are not talking about it as much, and yet the rates of hypertension have actually gone up, and that's largely because of the food that everyone is eating. So
Yeah.
this will be a great opportunity to deconstruct how you can take control over a largely preventable risk factor and enjoy the journey in doing it.
Yeah. I think I would love for you to talk really quick just on, how powerful this food is. And if you are on medications, like
Mm,
how important it is to work with a doctor like
that's right.
yourself, because it can get really dangerous because this food's so
Yeah,
powerful.
that's right. Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely talk about that if you come to our event,
Mhm.
but I think your point is a really good one, and it's something if there is a risk of lifestyle change, it is that in our modern environment, you're right, a lot of people are on medications. I'm working with a patient right now, and, she is on 1 blood pressure pill, but actually she's on 3. And that's because a lot of these newer medications are just combinations of old drugs.
Mhm.
For variety of reasons, doctors prescribe those. One, well, the drug companies like making those because they get new patents on old drugs and they can charge more. And, the doctor says, this is easier for you. It's easier for me. I can write one
Right.
prescription and you get 3 refills and a 90-day supply, so I really, I have to write this prescription once and then but the challenge is so now I'm prescribing her all the medications separately because as she's making lifestyle changes, we know this. We know the blood pressure will come down and to your point, so there's that's what we call deprescribing. And when you deprescribe, that's not something doctors are trained to do in medical school, is to deprescribe, and that's
Mhm.
not something that most people involved in the current medical system expect. They expect once somebody goes on a medication, they'll likely stay on it, and
Right.
there's a likelihood that they'll need higher dose and more medication. This is why these combo pills have erupted. And so yeah, if you can kinda get yourself out of that matrix and realize, "No, I can actually come off these medications." To your point, it behooves you to do it with the guidance of a physician, and your personal physician um, may balk at that. I mean, I have a lot of patients who tell me
Mhm.
that. They're like, "Oh, my doctor doesn't think I'm ever gonna come off these medications." And so that's one of the reasons, I exist and other lifestyle medicine doctors exist. And so I am licensed in 10 states, and you can work with me directly. You can visit my website. I help people come off medication and reverse their disease, and do it in a safe way, to your point. Yeah. Okay.
That's
All right.
amazing.
That was really awesome. I really appreciate you coming on. I feel like there was just a ton of nuggets of wisdom, but there's probably so much more that you have
Oh,
from
we
all your
could
experience.
talk for hours.
Yeah. So I'm excited. With certainly next month, I'll have you back and we can talk more and we can also highlight the wonderful series that we're starting together. And if people want to learn more about Chloe, about the work you're doing or how they can connect with you, what's a good way?
Yeah. You can visit my website. It's chloepanina.com. It used to be chloe'scleancuisine.com. That changed about a year. So they both redirect to the same website.
Got it.
And you can message me on Instagram, Chloe Panina. And yeah, I love talking with everybody, sharing recipes, food tips. You know,
Yeah.
I know we're gonna talk a lot about food in the next coming, months, but
Yeah.
there's so many ways to just tweak things and make things really
Mm,
exciting, and,
mm,
when I'm thinking about creating recipes and serving people, there's a formula that's, like, constantly running in
mm,
my head, so I'm excited to share that with everybody
mm,
and learn more from you and,
mm.
create some really powerful, beautiful food that will, create massive change and be really healing. So I'm really excited.
Oh, thank you for just pointing that out, that the point of all this is to enjoy food and yes, eat delicious food, but also to heal and to really turn a lot of the needless suffering that people are experiencing in this world into compassionate action and living.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful to have you here today and to be collaborating with you. And thank you everyone who's been
Thank you.
watching either live or recorded. And I will see you back here next week. Take care.